Facebook ads for real estate investing lead generation are absolutely dead. The reason being is Facebook has made a lot of changes on how you can target motivated sellers. So it's become essentially impossible to go to them directly. And the problem is most real estate investors have Facebook guys, Facebook girls, and agencies, marketing people trying to figure this out. What you really need is a real estate investor. But does a person like that even exist? Someone who knows real estate investing and knows Facebook ads? Well, I happen to have a really good friend that does. He's actually the godfather of virtual wholesaling. I think he's actually the very first one. No, I know for a fact he was the very first one to actually use that phrase, virtual wholesaling. And he was extremely successful. So what he did is he brought his offline marketing strategies to online inside of Facebook's advertising platform. And what he's done, he's cracked the code and beaten the Facebook advertising algorithm. So recently he shared these Facebook advertising secrets with my Epic community inside of our Lead Machine Masterclass. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play that for you here right now. We're gonna get right to the meat. And whether you decide to take him up on his offer or not, he has promised to make this worth every single minute that you're watching. So at the very least, get your pen, get your paper ready. You're gonna wanna take notes. But before we begin, click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell because I post cool stuff like this each and every week and you don't wanna miss it. Let's go.
The purpose of this of my presentation is doing two things. Number one is I'm going to share with you what we're using, what we're doing online in terms of generating motivated sellers and finding deals. However, I'm going to expand your horizons and put a little tweak into what we're doing when it comes to virtual and the virtual aspect of it. And then I created what a lot of people coin now as a digital bandit sign. So taking the principles of direct mail. And with direct mail, we were going into zip codes that if you're doing any sort of direct mail, many times what you'll do is in order to pick your target market, pick your geographic area, you would figure out which zip codes had the most investor activity, and you would go ahead and mail into those zip codes because you know that that's where if you found a deal, you can easily wholesale it, be able to turn it around, etc. So I use that same principle with the ads, where I would have the ads would be tailored toward each zip code. So I would be advertising in a particular zip code. The little sign on the ad, as you see here, would have the actual zip code, and everything would be custom. And so I did this, and we were having amazing results. We were really just killing it. However, there was a problem because Facebook had a different idea about the whole thing, and that was because I forgot. This was in 2019. Yes, 2019. They put an announcement that they were going to be removing zip code targeting. So this was the thing that was really working well for us. And so they were saying, no, we're going to remove it. And the reason they removed it, not to get into the finer details of it, but it was related to a housing issue because technically it was housing related. The Department of Housing and Urban Development basically just slapped Facebook on the wrist and said, hey, somebody could use this in order to discriminate against certain zip codes. And you got to get rid of it. And so they got rid of it. So that created a problem. And it created a problem because I started to, try to figure out, okay, well, if they're not allowing zip codes, how can I go ahead and go about trying to find these property owners that I know that might be interested in selling their property at a discount? And I tried a bunch of different ways. And I just really, I couldn't find anything that worked. I was generating some leads, but certainly not at the volume and certainly not at the cost. So in other words, those costs were really, really high. And then what happened is that, and this is really, really by accident, one day I made an error when I was building out my campaigns. And I was targeting, remember, I was going into, like, I live in Broward County, Florida. So I was going in and targeting very specific, zip codes, the same way that you would mail and you would target particular zip codes. And then I made an error because I forgot to put in the geographic area inside of the campaign where you set this up. And I'll show you in a minute how that works. And then what ended up happening is that instead of selecting my local area, I ended up not putting anything, which by default, Facebook just says, okay, you want people all over the US to see your ad. And that's what ended up happening. And so I ended up starting to get a bunch of leads coming in. At first I thought, oh my God, I cracked the code. And then I realized, oh, there's a lead from Ohio. There's a lead from California. There's a lead from here, from there. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? So then that's when I figured it out. But then the light bulb went off in my head and said, well, maybe there is a different way to attack this. And that's when I started and I stumbled upon really the whole concept that we're going to be talking about here today, which is the concept of national and nationwide wholesaling, using digital marketing in order to facilitate that. And that's what we're going to be talking about here today. So today, there's two things that you have to embrace. You have to embrace digital marketing and the ability to go out and find prospects online, but you also have to then embrace the fact that, hey, you're not bound to any one particular market, whether that be your local market, or if you're doing virtual wholesaling where you normally are going to pick one market and decide, like if I'm in Florida, I might decide, hey, I'm going to go into Houston, Texas. I'm still making that decision to go into one market. And that's what we're doing. We're not doing that anymore. We're not selecting one market. We're selecting a very large geographic region. And so that's what I'm going to do in this presentation. I'm going to share that with you today. And again, it's the model. And I'm going to go through this individually, step by step, and we're going to get into the details of this. Is number one is a bit of a mindset shift and explaining to you why it is that the nationwide model works best. Then I'm going to share with you how we use online ads and the whole back end, how we set them up and everything related to that. So I'm going to go into the details. This is not like a very broad view, broad presentation, but that I'm not going to get into the details of it. And then I'll share with you then how when we initiate the marketing, we're going to get all these leads, how we go about cherry picking these leads. And I'll show you some sample leads as they come in so you have an idea of the type of prospects that we're dealing with. And then finally, how do we do this thing when we are in a market that we have never even heard before? I mean, I have students that have done deals and I ask them, have you, they'll do a deal in some random town and I'll say to them, have you ever heard of this town before? And they're like, no, I never heard of this. I never even knew this town existed until the lead came in that day. And I was like, okay, I guess they want to sell. And those are what we're going to cover. We're going to cover them individually, step by step. So let's go ahead and then get right into it. Let's talk about what the nationwide model is. Now, in real estate, when everybody always says, hey, what's the most important part about real estate? They always say location, 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 right? And that's what we're trying to say, that we're doing the opposite of that. We're completely ignoring location. And so what most real estate investors do is that they decide that they're going to go and do either local or virtual wholesaling. Local meaning I'm in my market, I'm going to do deals in my local market, or virtual where I'm going to do it in a market that's not local to me, but I'm still making that decision that I'm going to just pick one market. So I'm making that decision. And then at that point, then once I select that market, then I'm going to then take and implement a bunch of different strategies in order to find deals in that local market, right? Now, a couple of things that are difficult with this. Number one, it's hard to pick a market because, and I've done it where, you can go out online and you can pick up a bunch of graphs and a bunch of stats about, how is this market doing? How are home prices here? How's this and how's that? And all this other stuff. In the end, it becomes this big jumbled mess, right, of information. And in the end, you're just as confused as you were when you first started. You might as well throw a dart on the dartboard and just pick a market randomly, right? And then now, when you do pick a market, right, now what you're doing is you're going in and targeting in that market. So what you're going to do is, typically what you would normally do is you would go in and maybe say, I'm going to go target a tax delinquent list, a vacant list, an absentee owner list, an owner occupied list. And so then you're also going to figure out how you're going to find those. So you might do driving for dollars, you might do cold calling on that list, you might do direct mail, you might do text messaging. But again, it's pretty much what everybody else does. So what we do is that we don't risk selecting the wrong market, because our market is going to be a much wider geographic region. And so the way we do that, the framework for that is that if you're a beginner, my recommendation is to pick the state that you live in. So if I'm in Florida, I'm going to pick the state of Florida as my market. I'm going to do deals in the entire state of Florida. Now, if you're intermediate, I would recommend maybe 2 to 3 states. The reason I say intermediate is because if you're just starting out, if you're intermediate and you're doing deals in a variety of different states, then every state has its nuances of doing business, of doing title, and of doing closings, etc. And so that becomes just one more layer of difficulty if you've never done a deal before. Now we have students that right away from the very beginning will just go ahead and figure it out and do it that way. But if you had if you had the choice, if I'm in Florida, easiest thing to do would be to pick the entire state of Florida. I may also select, Florida. I've done business before in Texas, so I can say, hey, I know somebody in Texas. I know a lot of investors are buying in, say, for example, North Carolina. So I might group a series of states together. And then finally, then the more advanced model is to select the entire country. And I put an asterisk there because we don't target the entire country, because you're going to get a lot of states that just don't have that much. There's a lot of farmland, etc. So typically we're dealing with just like the top 15 to 20 large metro states that have a big population. Now, I do recommend that when you're approaching this model, that you stay away from certain states. Now, for example, if you're in California, we've had students where they were in California and they tried to do this locally. Like if they're in San Diego, they would try to do it in San Diego. It didn't really work that well. If you're in California, for example, you wouldn't target California specifically. You might target California, but you might add Florida, you might add Texas. And what will happen is you'll get leads in California, but you'll also get leads in those other states. Because at the end of the day, we're not so dead set on a particular property or a particular region. We're really just looking for somebody who's motivated to sell their property at a discount, right? Regardless of their location. Some states that I do recommend to stay away from initially, like for example, if you're in New York, like for example, Queens County, Bronx County, generally those are really tougher markets. Anytime you do a deal, like I'll give you an example. I had a client who was trying to get their deal done. They were in Queens and Bronx County, Queens County, and they had been for 2 or 3 months just working hard, doing direct mail, trying to get a deal. Every time they would find a motivated seller that was interested in selling the property, they would go ahead and then say, okay, great, I'll send you an agreement. The seller immediately went to their attorney. The next thing you know, the attorney says, oh, we want a $40,000 deposit. It gets all unraveled, and then he couldn't do anything, because in that area, everybody goes to an attorney. And so then that student then decided, okay, let me just go ahead and market in Florida. And within a month, he had his first deal only by changing that market. So in New York, for example, I recommend you stay away from in the beginning. There is Illinois, where you do need a real estate license to do wholesaling. You could do one deal, but after one deal, we have students that are in Illinois. And then I would just recommend you don't do anything in Illinois. If you live in Illinois, later on, you can get your license. Although if you're doing well with every other state, you might decide, you know what, it's not worth it for me to get a license. I'll just do deals in these other locations. Now, the question that I get from people is that, hey, aren't I going to get a lot of leads in little towns with no demand? Where I can't do anything with the leads. And yes, you are going to get leads in very, very small towns, but it's surprising because these are viable markets. For example, we had a client that did a deal in a market called Johnston, Pennsylvania. The population size is 20,000 people. Because the thing is that you wouldn't normally, like if you were looking for a market, even though Johnston, Pennsylvania, for example, is a market where there's demand, where there's people that are motivated, that if you found a deal, you could sell it. You wouldn't necessarily pick that market because, number one, you may not know about it. Number two, it may not be a large enough metro area for you to put an effort in terms of direct mail and cold calling and all those other examples. But if you did get a deal there, then you would take the deal and you would do the deal. And so that's what we're getting when we're approaching more of a nationwide model. We're getting deals in a lot of pockets that you may not have considered otherwise. But here's a couple other examples. This guy did a deal in Whitewright, Texas, population size of 1,960, and one in Whitney, Wisconsin, population size of 933. Again, really, really small towns. And now the key thing about this is that this is where this model here works really great for wholesaling, works great for lease options, and we have a lot of clients using this model for creative financing. So Matt's really great. He's an expert at doing that, and we have tons of students that are doing creative financing deals in these smaller markets and picking up properties where they have tremendous margins because they're in just smaller markets where there's not that many investors fighting for the same deal. So those are typically like where when people are implementing this model, they're typically using any one of these three strategies. And I say that because, like, for example, if you're rehabbing, typically, if you're rehabbing, you're maybe doing things in an area that you're already familiar with, you have a crew in place, etc. So with this strategy, then these are the top three ways that our students are using in order to be able to do deals. Now, the problem with the nationwide model, so there's a problem because if I said to you, hey, I think you should target the whole state of Florida in order for you to have less competition and to have a chance of doing deals in areas that you may not have considered. The problem is that if you wanted to target the whole state of Florida, it'd be very difficult for you to target the entire state of Florida with conventional type of marketing, like with cold calling or direct mail, because you're technically not going to mail the entire state of Florida. I guess you could. The post office would be very happy because you take them out of their misery. But at the end of the day, it would just be very difficult, economically not feasible for you to mail the whole state. And that's where the digital marketing comes in, right? Because we use Facebook and Instagram in order to go ahead and find these motivated sellers in a very large geographic area like this. All right. So now what we're not doing on Facebook is we're not posting a bunch of times every day. We're not sharing a public life. We're not spamming a bunch of videos, spamming a bunch of pages and people, etc. What we're doing is obviously we're advertising on Facebook. All right. So we're creating ads, and I'm going to go into a lot of detail in this here. We're creating ads like this that then get someone to click on a button, fill out a form, and be able to submit their information and say, yes, I'm interested in selling my property and I would like to speak with you. And, Facebook is quite large. Most people don't realize that there's over 2 billion active users, an average of 40 minutes a day on Facebook. That number is probably higher now with everything going on in this world, and all demographics, because a lot of times people say, well, gee, I'm not really going to find my property owners are older people, 55 years or age or older. I'm not going to find people like that in Facebook, but that's not the case. This is a client, and I just showed this picture just to show you that my client obviously is the guy on the left. Not that she couldn't be my client, the guy on the right, but to illustrate that was a seller on the property. And she's not a young chicken by any stretch of the imagination. So, she was on Facebook and she saw the ad from Bo, and they did a transaction. And he made $24,000 on that deal. And also there's the benefit of Facebook and any sort of online endeavor is that there's less competition from real estate investors in these channels, right, than your conventional channels. And again, Facebook is also the easiest platform to learn online advertising. And so the other part of the equation is that it's my belief that everyone should learn how to go out and find prospects online. Online marketing, the ability to go out and advertise online, it's not going to go away by any stretch of the imagination. And so the question I always ask is that, don't you think it would be helpful for you as a business owner, just as a business owner, because you're here in the real estate business, but if you take the real estate out, you're wanting to become a business owner. Some of you are just starting that path. Some of you are already there. Regardless, though, it would be helpful for you as a business owner to learn online marketing because, again, it's not going anywhere. And so the question becomes is, hey, how does Facebook know? How does Facebook find the motivated sellers that I'm looking for? And, a lot of people get upset at this, the fact that Facebook has a lot of data. This is just a short list of all the different data points that Facebook has. Every time you visit a website, they can track you because of Facebook Pixel, and it's all over every single website on the internet. And, you can get pissed off, or you can say, you know what, why are they doing this? There's only one reason Facebook does collect all of this data, and it's for the benefit of us as an advertiser. That's really the only reason. And so why not take advantage of it? Why not take advantage of the fact that, hey, all these data points are here. I can use that to my advantage and find the prospects in my business. And so again, the prospects that we're looking for are on Facebook. And I'm going to share these slides with Matt too as well, so he can give you access to these. And I'm going to go step by step. I'm going to get, obviously in the time we have together, I can't do a full tutorial, but I'm going to give you a lot of the details so that you understand exactly what you need to do in order to start advertising on Facebook. The first step is that you're going to go out and you're going to get a business manager account on Facebook. Getting a business manager account on Facebook is the equivalent of you going out into the regular world and getting a corporation. Right? So you're incorporating inside of Facebook's ecosystem, and you're going to do that by creating an account under business.facebook.com. And then now the next part of the process is that then you're going to go out and create a business page. The business page is like the equivalent of a website on the internet, but that happens to be on Facebook's property. And the one thing I would say is that on the business page, you want to create something that is personal in nature. You want to create something, and we've tested this, where we have the best success when we're presenting ourselves as an individual, right? Because at the end of the day, people do business with other human beings, right? Because in our business, most of us, especially if you're starting out, you need money now. You're not looking. You would love to, but you don't have the luxury of trying to create a brand over the next 2 or 3 years that then people will know you in your marketplace. You need the ability to advertise and be able to get prospects to raise their hands right away and to say, yes, I want to do business with you. And so we recommend something like on the left, where you're making a page that is very much a personal approach versus the one on the right. The one on the right is where I see a lot of investors do, and the one on the left is the one that I recommend. And so you put your picture on there, you put like a nice banner up here, you would post pictures or videos of you on the page, so that if somebody visits there, they can see that, oh yes, this is Chris, and look, he has videos showing how he buys houses and seems like a nice guy. So yes, I would like to do business with him. Now, in addition to that, you are going to need a website. Most of you, I think, should have a website. If not, I would recommend Matt, I think, has a resource for getting a website. So whatever recommendation he has, I would say just reach out to him, and he'll give you his recommended vendor if you don't have one already. But you're going to need a website because Facebook is going to want one for you to advertise, number one, but also two, for credibility reasons. That if you are talking with a property owner and you're trying to establish credibility, then I always find that rather than saying, oh, I'm with XYZ Property LLC, and the sellers would be like, what's that? I don't know what that is. Who's that? Who are you? It sounds more credible if you say, hey, I'm with sellyourusaHomeToday.com. Hey, this is Chris with Sell Your Florida House, SellYourFloridaHouseToday.com, whatever your domain is. And so what I would say is that when you're building a website, try to come up with something that when you envision yourself talking to a property owner, that it's easy for you to say, that you don't have to spell, and that immediately also tells them what you do in that whole thing, right? Because if I said, hey, I'm with XYZ Properties LLC, then they're going to be like, well, what's that? Well, we buy properties in Florida. We're property investors, etc. As opposed to if I'm doing advertising in Florida and I say, hey, this is Chris with Sell Your Florida House Today.com, then they, in a way, the seller gets it in that same conversation. They say, oh, he must be legitimate. He has a website. So it just helps the conversation, but you do need one as well for Facebook. Now, the next thing that we need images, right? Because part of the process in advertising on Facebook is images. And we find that ugly houses work best. Now, that depends on the type of house you're looking for. If you're doing creative financing where maybe you're looking for pretty houses, then I would test and put some pretty houses. If you're doing wholesaling, you can always test, but we find that for wholesaling, ugly houses work best. And these are just some examples of some of the houses that we use. Some of them with for sale sign. If you notice the one on the right, it's like a house that's all torn up, and it's kind of like you're looking through a car window. So it's kind of like a little bit, it'll pique someone's interest. And that's what we're looking to do. With any of these images that we're using on Facebook, we're looking to stop the scroll. We're looking to have the user, they're on their phone. I don't have my phone in front of me. They have their phone, they're flicking through their phone, and all of a sudden now you want them to stop and be able to look at your ad. So the image is a really big part of that. Ugly houses have consistently worked for me. And then a couple tools, and I'll show you one of the examples here is that you want to make those images pop. You want to have those images show really well so that they're bright and they get someone's attention. Now, how to find the images? You can go on Craigslist. This is kind of like a little bit of a hack where I go on Craigslist and I usually some people post properties in Craigslist that have high resolution. So I go and I find a picture that I like. That I would say that's what I do. I don't know, I don't think Craigslist wants you to do that, but I'm just telling you what I do and not telling you what you should do, and then you make your own decisions. How about that? That's my legal disclaimer on that. You can search Google. I'd search for ugly houses, code violation houses, handyman houses, and a lot of stuff shows up. And again, I'm telling you what I do to get images. You can also drive around, go to your local area, find a bunch of ugly houses, take pictures of them, and then you have your pictures that you want. So a lot of different ways to get pictures. So I would leave it at that. and always be testing. Like for example, the picture on the left is a picture of a house with me just looking like I have diarrhea or something like that, and then the one on the right is just a picture by itself. The one on the left did not do that well. So me looking at the looking like I have diarrhea here did not in any way make Facebook make people stop. Maybe they scrolled just a little bit faster because I scared the crap out of them. But you're always testing different images. The one thing that we do with images is that we increase the saturation on the images, right? So if you notice, the picture on the left is just a normal picture. The picture on the right is where we go ahead and increase the saturation on the image and really make it pop. If you I don't have it, I think I had it on the previous slide. There's a tool there, right there. You see what it says on the last line, it says canva.com. Canva.com is a tool that you can use in order to increase the saturation and make any changes to the images. That's the tool that I recommend. Real nice and easy. Even if you've never done anything like that before, then you can use that tool in a matter of just like 10-15 minutes. You'll be up and running because it's designed for people that are not really techie. You can also use video in your ads. A lot of people use video. Video is great for targeting as well. And if you're using video, the most important thing with video is to when you're doing any social media, whether it be Facebook or Instagram, whatever you're doing, the most important thing is lighting and audio. People are willing to forgive a video that is not that great. It's maybe grainy, but they can hear the audio. Versus if you had a video that was just stellar, that was like a feature film, but the audio sucked, then they're not going to listen to they're not going to sit around and struggle with that. So want to make sure that you have good audio and lighting. Use your cell phone. I mean, that's what I use to record the videos. You can buy in Amazon a little lapel mic that just pins to your shirt, and you'll be able to record both either with an Android device or iPhone. This thing is really capable. So all you need is this. You hold it in front, and you would just tell people, hey, my name is Chris, and I buy properties all over the USA, and I love to be able to buy yours. If you're interested, I can buy the house. The typical thing that you would say to a seller, whether it be in your marketing and a postcard or a letter, but you just do it like this on your phone, and that becomes your ad. Now, if you notice on this here, you see that I have up at the top, like the little caption that appears at the top, and then it has the little, if you watch, videos on Instagram, you see that the words appear at the bottom. There's a software called Clipscribe that I subscribe to that you can just take your videos, upload them. You got to make them 60 seconds. So when you record the video, then sometimes when you record it, you might go over 60 seconds. So you stop it, you record another one. Eventually you get the point. You got to talk fast. You record, make them 60 seconds. You can upload them here and it'll put everything together. And it's really nice and easy. Give you a video that then you can use with your ads. Now, for us, so we put it all together, right? We put it all together and we create an ad that is basically an image and conversational text like you see here, right? For example, one of the ads says, the one on the right says, need to sell your problem property ASAP. If you're interested in selling your property now without having to deal with showing it to the public or fixing it up, then we should talk. Despite everything going on, I have the funds and the desire to buy a few properties this month. The one on the left says, sell your house in 1 month. Is it really possible to sell your house in 1 month without giving it away? Just imagine if you sold your house without having it listed, etc. You can see that here. You'll get the slides. And so these are the type of ads that we run. Now, when somebody on this ad, you notice it has a little learn more button. So what happens is when somebody clicks on that button, then a lead form will pop up. And it's what we're doing is we're not sending people to our website. We're using an internal system inside of Facebook called lead ads that basically when somebody clicks on the button, a form will pop up right there on Facebook. They'll fill out their information. And then once they submit it, they'll go back to Facebook, which Facebook likes because they want to keep the users on Facebook because they want to keep on showing them ads on something else, because if Mary wants to maybe sell her house, she will see your ad, will click on the link, the thing will pop up. She'll fill out the information, then she'll go back to Facebook, and maybe 4 minutes later, she'll see an ad on, hey, how to lose 10 pounds in 30 days, because she also wants to lose weight too as well. So Facebook wants to keep them on the platform. And so again, all the information is collected inside of Facebook. Now, the benefit, the fact that we're using, this particular form inside of Facebook is that we don't have to worry about creating a converting website. The prospect never leaves Facebook, so it's easy for them to submit their information. And what we do is we customize it a little bit. So rather than just saying, give us your name, your address, and your phone number, we go ahead and ask very particular questions. So, hey, we say, what's the address of the property you want to sell, including city, state, and zip. Then we also, the full name is where that gets pre-populated. But sometimes people don't update their email addresses on Facebook. So the way we get around that is that we ask for the email in a slightly different way. We say, hey, what's the best email to send your offer to? And then for the phone number, we say, hey, what's the number that we can text you our offer? So now it forces them to input that number, which means that, which we want, because we want to make sure that we're getting accurate information. And so we phrase those questions in that way, so that way the information isn't auto-populated in the form that might be incorrect. And so then now once they submit the form on Facebook, right, then the email, then you can have that lead go a variety of different ways. You can have that if you have a CRM that you're using, right, for like a software system in order to get your leads, like Podio, FreedomSoft, or whatever you're using. You can have your leads sent there. You can also have your leads sent to your email. If you're starting out, you want to keep things simple. You want to just minimize your costs. You can easily just have your leads go to your email, and then you'll get an email, a notification, and you just go ahead and call them right from your phone. It's not that difficult. Now, in terms of how much it costs, I got to take a drink of water. We recommend a budget of $20 a day to start, 20, 25-ish, something like that. Not much more than that. And as you get more comfortable, then you can always increase the budget on that. And again, this is not a system where, hey, I'm going to spend $20, $25 a day. I'm going to let it run for a week or 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks. Eventually, the swell of goodness will just continue to build, and then I'm going to start getting property owners to reach out and say, hey, I've been watching your ads for like 2 weeks now, and I'm interested in selling my property. Really, the way this works is that if you take and you put your ad up in the morning, by the end of the day, you should have 2 or 3 leads already to work. At the most by the second day. If you don't have anything by the second day, then something is wrong. Maybe you're doing something incorrectly. But I hear sometimes people say, well, gee, if you're advertising on Facebook, you got to advertise for like a week or 2 weeks, let the audience build up, and then eventually you get leads. Not really the case. Not really the case. If you do it right, you should get leads right away. I'm going to show this just as an example. This is one of my clients, Eli. He just says that he launched his Facebook ad campaign this morning, and then this post was at 10:52. So he already had 5 leads. So he started in the morning. By the end of the day, he had 5 leads, and he spent $22.10, which I should have put this on the slide, but that is a very, very low cost per lead. So it didn't, $22.10 divided by 5, he spent an average of $4.42 a lead, which is really, really low. If you do any sort of marketing, then you would know that that's very low. I'll give you another example just so you have an idea of what the numbers look like, right? So this is a campaign that I ran in Florida, and we had generated 50 leads at an average cost of $10.80 a lead, for a total spent of $540. So if you're doing Facebook advertising, you're looking at, and this really would apply to almost any advertising that you do, whether it be Facebook or cold calling or direct mail. You don't want to make the mistake of generating 2 or 3 leads and then saying, oh, this doesn't work. You got to come in knowing that in any marketing channel that, hey, I got to get a certain number of leads in order for me to have it to be able to know if I'm getting the right type of leads, and to put myself in a position to be able to do a deal. And so my rule of thumb is you want to generate 50 leads. 50 leads. One of those should turn out to be a deal. And now we do have clients that do more than 1 out of 50. And now the way you can do that is if you're incorporating some of Matt's strategies, let's say with the creative financing, now you have more different avenues, right? That then now you can incorporate into what you're doing, such that then now you are able to offer a variety of different things to the seller. And now instead of doing 1 out of every 50, you might do 2 or 3 or 4 out of every 50, because you're doing a lease option, you're doing creative financing, you're doing a wholesaling deal, etc. So that's but as a general rule of thumb, it also depends on how good you are talking with sellers, right? Because if you're just starting out brand new and you really don't know what you're doing, you might have to go through more leads than somebody else who might be more experienced who knows how to do creative financing, and is able to do more with the leads. So that's how we generate the leads. Now the next step is now we have all these incoming leads. How do we deal with that, right? Because of the fact that now we have sellers from all over the U.S. Sending us their information, saying that they want to sell their property. So how do we deal with that? How do we make those deals? Now, one thing to note is that the benefit to this is, or this type of marketing is that it's incoming leads, right? So you're not an annoying pest. You're not reaching out to someone and they don't know who you are, and like you're disrupting their life, and they're like, I have no idea who you are or why are you calling. It's similar to, say, a direct mail where somebody would call you from the postcard. Here they're raising their hands, filling out their information, so that when you do get a hold of them, then it's a lot, they're expecting your call, right? They're expecting to hear from you. So it's just a warmer type of conversation. And so the process is simple, right? The property owner fills out a form on Facebook, and then you're going to get notification of that lead. What a lot of our clients do is that they text message the owner. If you think about your daily life right now, the majority of the time you're communicating with people via text. And so you have to be okay with the fact that sometimes the owners they may not want to talk to you right away. They might want to communicate with you by text messaging, because that's the way they're used to. Maybe they're at work, they don't have the time. And then eventually you get to the point where maybe you've gathered some information, and then you get to the point where now you're ready to have that conversation with them and discuss price. And at that point, then you can get on the phone with them. So you have to be open to that maybe if you call an owner and they don't pick up the phone, but then you text them and they do reply back, then continue that conversation by text and warm them up, so that then you can go ahead and then be able to have a chance of getting the deal. I always get this story about my wife. We were getting health insurance, and she filled out a form on some website. I forgot what it was, but the day after, she was bombarded with calls. Everybody was calling her, and she didn't want to pick up the phone. And these were people that wanted to sell her health insurance. One gut person, he said, hey, I know you're probably getting a lot of calls, but maybe I can help you. I can get some information here by text. He went back and forth with her for about a week, eventually got her on the phone and sealed the deal. Why? Because he was willing to work with her in the way that she wanted to work. So just keep that in mind. And then the next step, number 3, is that we want to just ask questions about the seller, their motivation, what's happening in their lives, why they want to sell, etc. And then from there, then we can negotiate and get an agreement signed. Depending on your type of deal, could be a wholesaling deal, creative financing deal, and just keep in mind is that 2 and 3 could be all done by text, and then the last one, number 4, is done on the phone, right? Although I've had students where they've negotiated with a property owner, by text, and they've done the whole transaction purely by text messaging and nothing else. So the nuance with that is that if you're dealing with a property owner that is in an area where it's not really heavily trafficked with real estate investors, then you're not dealing with a lot of competition, and so they're going to be easier to work with and easier to do business with. And also keep in mind is that nowadays people are more predisposed to do things virtually, whereas before you have to, somebody might say, hey, you need to come look at my house. Nowadays is, hey, we can buy the house and we can do all this with minimal human intervention of us having to go see the property, etc. And people are more open to that now. So keep that in mind. It's actually easier now. So let me share with you some of the way that these are sample leads. I blocked out the stuff on the left because they're actual leads. But the column on the let me see here. The column on the right, see where I put a red box around it. Time. So on the lead form here, because you could modify the lead form. On this particular lead form, I asked them what their timetable was. So if you notice here, these are live leads. They're saying, time is, 3 months, ASAP, etc. I even asked them for the price. So right then and there, I know, what the price they're asking. And then you can see on the right, you can see the reason, right? A husband passed away. House is too much, too big, downsizing, need money, lost job due to COVID, and me and the wife. I'm 77 years old and need to downsize. So these are viable leads. So these are the type of prospects that we're getting when we're doing advertising like this on Facebook. And these are sample local leads, for example. So even though I said that national works best, and it is true, national works best. If you're here and you're like, Chico, I want local leads. I really want leads in my local market. Then yes, this is a campaign that I recently ran in Dade and Broward County, giving me local leads. You're just going to pay more money for them, right? Because you're forcing Facebook into a really small confined area and you're telling them, I want deals here. I don't want them anywhere else. And that means Facebook is going to say, well, we're going to charge you more money for that. So it really depends. I recommend that if you're starting out brand new, just go ahead and target a wide geographic area. Target the whole state of Florida, for example, or your whole state. In my example, the whole state of Florida, your state, or a grouping of states, as opposed to local, right? Because you're just going to have a lower cost per lead. You're going to have deals that are going to come to you where there's not going to be that much competition. It's just going to make things easier for you. I always say that, whenever you deposit money in Bank of America, they never care how much, they never care where you get it from. They never care how hard you work for it. They never care if the deal was difficult or it was easy. So I'd say, well, why not just do the easier way than the hard way? This one here, time frame, they had said 20 days soon, ASAP, and ASAP 3 to 6 months. So a key fact about these owners, right? Number one is, like I mentioned, they reached out to us. So they raised their hands and said, yes, I'm interested in speaking to you about selling my property. They're happy to hear from me. They know that I need a discount because it says so on the ad. So we're already working from a good position. They're not in any sort of public list because no other investors knows about these deals. They're not speaking with other investors, so we don't have to deal with a lot of competition. And so nobody else knows that they exist. So then somebody fills out the form. And then what we do is just simply send them a text message. Hey, this is it's like, hey, Matt, this is Chris, and I'm responding to your message about the property at 123 Main Street. Can you tell me a little bit about the property you're wanting to sell? So some people say, well, gee, are they really going to tell you a lot of information? I got this from one of my students. He sent me this. He showed me this where he was at. This is the text conversation he had back and forth with the property owner, and the property owner is telling him all kinds of stuff. Like, he's telling him, my health is bad. This is going on. That's going on, and all this is done by text messaging. So I'm telling you this to tell you that text messaging, be okay with text messaging back and forth with the leads initially. Now, the other thing I was going to mention before I forget is that if you're working full time, dealing like this is a little bit easier because let's say you're at work and a lead comes in. You may not have the time to be able to, hey, let me step outside, call this lead. But you can easily text them and go back and forth with them throughout the course of the day, right? Because people are used to text messaging, and then they got to deal with something with their kids, and they come back to their phone, they see your other message, and they go back and forth. And then finally, when you get off of work, or whenever you're able to, now you can get with them on the phone. So that's a benefit of the text messaging. Because you're dealing with property owners that are really not talking with a lot of other investors, the scripts are a little bit less difficult to deal with, right? Your words and how you communicate with these property owners. In essence, I mean, I always say that you're always just looking to figure out what that other person is looking to do. What is the problem that they're trying to solve? Because at the end, we're problem solvers, right? You get basic information such as the property details, the bedrooms and bath condition, repairs, and motivation, and the asking price. And in terms of repairs, even though we're dealing with areas that we don't know anything about, we ask the property owners certain questions, etc., about the property. But we don't really need to know anything about fixing up the property or the values or anything like that, because we're not buying stuff to fix and flip or rehab or anything like that. So we don't need to do that much research into a property. And honestly, we use sites like Zillow and Redfin in order to go in and figure out what the property is worth, what other properties are asking for in the area. And we're just looking to get the best deal we can, to then that way we can then speak with other real estate investors about the deal that we have in order to be able to sell it and to be able to wholesale it. And then, once we agree on the price with the owner, then we have a one-page agreement. We send it to them by email. This is what I use. We use HelloSign. There's I forgot the other one now, that DocuSign is another popular one. There's a bunch of other platforms. I like HelloSign because I think it's just really, really simple. And they also have HelloFax in case somebody ever wants to send you a fax. But you can send, once you talk to that individual, you can go ahead and then have them send the contract via HelloSign. They sign it right there, right then and there on the phone, and now you have an agreement. So now then, once you have that agreement with the property owner, then the next thing is, how do we sell the deal? So this is where people get stuck, because they're like, well, okay, I'm fine. I can negotiate with the property owner, and I can, and that maybe doesn't matter as much. The fact that it's in an area that in a town that I didn't even know existed. But now, how am I going to find a buyer for this? Because I don't have a buyer's list in that market. I never knew that market existed. The buyers are easier because we're finding these deals in these smaller markets. We can get better pricing, right? So number one is that it's always easier to sell a deal the better the deal is, right? So that's something in our favor, right? Now, what we do is a couple things. So I have to go through logistics. We get the property under contract. Now we're going to get the owner of the property to send us pictures. We find that that's the easiest way. We can get photos. We can just tell the property owner, look, as part of the negotiation of the purchase price, you said, look, I think I can get this deal done with my underwriting department. It would really help me if you were to send me photos of the property, email them to me. I'll send you a quick text that tells you exactly all the photos that I need. Send them over to me. And they're more than happy to get. I had never had a seller. We never had an issue with a seller sending us photos, because they don't want anybody going to the house, right? And if it's a tenant occupied property, many times we're able to get the tenant to take photos of the property. Now, normally we would pay a service like $50 in order to take the photos, and we can offer the tenant that and say, look, I got two options for you. I can send someone to take photos of the property, or if you want to take photos of the property, and I'm going to send you a list, and if you follow that list and you take the photos, email them to us, we'll PayPal you $50, and we'd rather pay you versus a complete stranger. And many times they'll send those photos to you. The way we find the buyers is through social media, public records, and Craigslist. I'm going to go through each of these individually real quick. Number one is that whenever you're in markets that you don't know anything about, you're not going in and just picking one buyer. What you're looking to do is you don't know where that buyer is going to come from. So you have to give yourself the best chance possible to try to find a buyer. Number one are wholesalers. Wholesalers, you can easily go on Craigslist, search on Google. You can find two or three wholesalers in that area that you can work with, right? And you can sign a consulting agreement with them, and you can work with them in order to in order for them to help you sell the deal, right? And so, that's self-explanatory. You find a wholesaler. At the end of the day, you're looking to, when you're working with another wholesaler, you don't want to, especially if you have a big deal, you don't want to give up 50% of your deal. So you might talk to 5 wholesalers, and you might find 2 that are willing to say, hey, look, if you send me a deal, I can send it out to my list. I'm happy to make $2,000 or $3,000. And or 4 or 5, depending on how big your deal is, you keep the lion's share because you did the marketing, you put the effort. That doesn't negate their effort, but at the end of the day, that's the ideal scenario, that you find another wholesaler that is willing to help you in getting that deal sold. And also, to the other, when you're dealing with another wholesaler, the benefit is that many times they can give you a little bit of advice on the deal, because you can say to them, hey, look, I got a deal. It's in this area here. Do you think you can move it? And they might say, yeah, I could definitely move it. That's a great price. Or they might say, yeah, you bought that too high because of XYZ. And then now at that point, now you know that, so you can go back to the seller, get a discount on the property. Typically for wholesalers, you can do a search. Like, for example, I did a search on real estate wholesalers Miami, and I get a bunch of different websites that show up. And I would just go ahead and go through that list and give them all a call, reach out to them, and just your goal is just to find a handful of them. You don't need that many. 2 or 3 would be the best. You can also search Craigslist. If you search on Craigslist, handyman, cash, investor special, hard money, then you can find wholesalers that are advertising their properties, and you just reach out to them and have a conversation with them. At the end of the day, the conversation is very easy. Look, I'm another wholesaler. I have a deal. Would you be willing to help me sell that deal? How does it work? If you take my deal and you send it out to your list, what do you normally do with regards to compensation? If they say, oh, I want half the deal, and if you know that you got a really good deal, you're like, yeah, it'd be tough for me to do that. I got marketing expenses, etc. Would you consider X? And you just work out the numbers, and that's it. And so, if I have a deal, wondering if you sell other people's deal, some will want 50%, some will be okay with 2 to 3 to 5K on the deal. And also, much depends on your deal and situation. If you've got a skinny deal where you're only, you bought a house for 20, you're trying to sell it for 25, you might have to split that deal with the other wholesaler because there's not that much to go around anyway. So there's no one size fits all. It's just working through that and making it work with you and the other wholesaler. Another way that we find buyers is through real estate agents. Now, the great things about real estate agents is that you can also use them as boots on the ground. So let's say that if I'm talking with another wholesaler, with a buyer, if I find a buyer and he says, yes, I'm interested in the property, then sometimes, you have to vet them because you don't know, you never dealt with them. They're going to go behind your back and talk to the seller, et cetera, et cetera. When you're dealing with a real estate agent, now it's a little bit different because they're going to hold to a certain code of ethics. Also, at the same time, they're going to act as an intermediary, right? So many times when we prefer to deal with a real estate agent because not only will they have a buyer for the property, but at the same time, they'll make sure that nothing goes wrong on the showing, nobody says anything that they shouldn't say, etc. So real estate agents are great. Finding agents, when you're dealing with agents, making sure that they're okay with assignments, that they understand how that works. And what I do is I use Zillow to find properties that are rehabbed, that look like, hey, this is a property that somebody is selling, looks like it's a rehab deal, etc. And I contact the agent and say, hey, look, are you representing a real estate investor? Are they looking for more deals? Because if so, then here's what I got. Here's how I work. And they might say, yeah, this guy, or no, I have like 4 or 5 of these investors. And so let me see what I can do. In terms of questions you would ask the agent is, hey, have you worked with investors before? Are you familiar with assignments? I'd be happy to do a commission agreement. You'll get paid on the HUD. Everything's on the up and up, etc. Typically, agents make 3%. I would offer them, something juicy like 5% of the deal. And again, you have to gauge that, right? Because if you have a $50,000 property and you're trying to mark it up for $5K to make a wholesale fee, and you're offering them 5% commission, there goes half of your assignment fee, which you might be okay just to be able to get the property moved, make $2,500 and be okay with it. So again, all these, when I give you these scenarios, you have to, a lot of times people get stuck because they're looking for, I want one formula that I can apply to every single scenario. It doesn't work that way. You got to kind of have to improvise, understand the big picture and improvise as you go along. Another one that we have success with is cash buyer groups. So you search in your town or state for groups. Posting, I would say be careful. So you got to be careful with posting in too many groups too quickly because Facebook will flag you. When you're posting for a deal, don't post the full address of the property. You want them to reach out to get the information about the property. And you can go to Facebook. Like, for example, if I typed into Facebook, Florida cash buyers, I get all these groups that show up. You can go into these groups and be able to find buyers for deals. You can also, like, for example, if I'm in this group and I'm looking for, and let's say I have a property in Sarasota, Florida, which is a city in Sarasota or county, then I can go into that group and then I could just do a search for Sarasota and I can see everybody that's posted about that city. And I might just right there be able to pull a bunch of buyers just from the cash buyer group really quickly without ever having to post, because somebody posted a deal, people posted, hey, email me the deal. They put their email address. You just go ahead and copy and paste. And now you have buyers that you can reach out to about the deal. The other way to find buyers is you can run Facebook ads for buyers. I couldn't get into that really with the time we have here. You can post your property on Craigslist. I talked about earlier, you can go on Craigslist, search for handyman houses for sale, investor special. You're going to find the wholesalers. With Craigslist, you can post your property. And again, though, don't recommend you post the address of the property just because then you want to be able to vet the buyers before they go to the property. And then Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace is also a great place to find buyers as well and to post your property. So with these things that I told you just right now, right? The other wholesalers, the real estate agents, the cash buyer groups and everything else, you can easily find a buyer for any one of your deals. And you might have to try all 3 of them or all 4 of them, right? Because sometimes you might the area that you get the deal in, Facebook Marketplace may not be that robust, but Craigslist, there's a lot of activity on Craigslist, or vice versa. So you kind of have to improvise and just figure it out. But at the end, there are a lot of options to find buyers. And in terms of showing the deal, right, even though you're doing it virtually and in an area that you don't know anything about, I would say, you always want to prep your buyers. They're your funding partners. They can ask you anything about, I tell the buyer, you can ask anything about the property. You're not going to, don't ask anything about price. right? But I told the seller, hey, this is my funding partner if I'm doing a wholesale deal, because then it makes sense that they're going to go ahead and bring the money. So we partner with other people. You could tell the seller is that, Mr. Seller, we're going to go ahead and have the way that, because this property is outside our service area, what we do is we partner with local buyers, that with local investors that have the crews in place, right, for the rehabbing and all that stuff, and we partner with them, and they also provide the funds, and we partner with them on the deals. So I'm going to have one or two of them go ahead and inspect the property for us. They're going to just make sure that everything you said to me and everything that you showed, we talked about the property is the case, that we don't go there and see like a hole in the roof because a meteorite just went through the roof 2 days ago and you didn't tell us about that, right? And that's kind of what we do. And then we tell the seller, hey, they're going to ask you questions about the property. And so as long as you prep the conversation on both sides, there's really isn't an issue with that, right? And if we're dealing with agents, then it's a little bit easier, because the agents, whenever there's an agent there, typically the buyer and the seller are never going to communicate with each other. The agent's there, and you can always tell the seller, look, for us, because it's a property outside of a service area, then we have an agent that we work with. There's no cost to you, Mr. Seller. We pay for the entire thing, but they help us coordinate our funding inspection and everything else required in order for us to be able to close on your property, etc. And then now, finally, the last thing would be finding a title company. There's a couple of choices on title companies, right? I always prefer to use a local title company. It really depends on volume, right? As you're starting out, if you're doing a lot of volume, then there's a couple of title companies that are national, right? There's a company called Clothesline Settlements, and then another one here, National Title Insurance Company, that they go ahead and do national. That you can go to one title company and they can deal with any property in any of the states that they work in. If you're doing a lot of volume, that might be a better option. If you're just starting out, I would just find a local title company. You can search on Google for the local real estate investment club. And then when you find the Real Estate Investment Club website, if you go to their website, typically you will see that they have vendors that are advertising on their website. And those vendors are people that are in the real estate business with investors. So many times there's going to be a title company that's going to be on our website. And you can that now they're a title company that used to dealing with real estate investors. You can talk to other wholesalers and ask them. And the question to ask is, hey, the title company is, are you familiar with assignments? Will you do it? If you're not familiar with assignments or you don't do it, will you do a double closing? What additional requirements you have for dealing with real estate investors? Anything that out of the ordinary that I should know about, etc. And how do you like to work? What do you want to know? What kind of paperwork? How do you want things presented to you? Just let me know how you want to work best, so that way we can go ahead and get this file over to you, and you can close it, and everybody be happy. Here is, like, for example, I typed into Facebook Broward Real Estate Investors, and I got a bunch of these. So these groups. So I can go in and ask for title company recommendations. On the right, I typed into Google Broward County Real Estate Club. And so then I get a bunch of clubs that show up in Broward. If I didn't know Broward, I wanted a title company, I can click on each of those websites. And on those websites, like I said, if you go to the local RIA, they will have vendors that are advertising because they want investor business, and all of those are investor-friendly title companies. So really not that big of an issue to find a title company. That's the least of your concern, right? So doing deals like that, doing deals nationally, it's not as difficult. I think the difficulty now is more mindset than anything else, right? And then the paperwork is very simple. Once we're agreeing the price that we're gonna, if you're doing a wholesaling agreement, it's just the contract. We're going to do an assignment of contract. We'll send it to the buyer by email with a DocuSign or HelloSign. They'll sign it, and then we'll send it over to the title company, and then we'll close in a couple weeks. And my advice is that whenever, I always say that the goal, if any of you here are starting out brand new from scratch, the goal is to try to get your first 2 to 3 deals done, right? Matt offers some great training. He also offers mentoring for that. Your goal is whatever you need to do to get your first 2 to 3 deals. It doesn't matter how, I have students where their first deal is $25,000. That's amazing. I have students where their first deal is only $2,000. That's great too. As long as once you get your first deal, the first deal proves to you that you can do this business, proves to you that it's for real, The next, 2 or 3 deals, once you get to the third deal, you kind of understand all the moving pieces of the business. Now it's just a matter of duplicating it and doing it more often, right? And again, just remember, the houses sell themselves if you've got a good price. I mean, that's really the bottom line. Now, if you cannot find a buyer, then if you're using, I'm sure Matt has shared with you the agreements that he has. If you just have your agreement set up with an out clause that enables you to get out of the deal if you can't find a buyer, and you do that within the time allotted. And again, everything here can be done virtually, and that's big picture of what I discussed with you today. Is just a recap. Is that number one is that virtual, you could do things either locally or virtually. However, though, what we're doing is we're expanding, and instead, rather than picking one market, we are now selecting a large geographic region. But now, if I'm going to select a large geographic region, I can't do that really that easily with conventional marketing. And that's where online advertising, that's where Facebook and Instagram come into the picture, because now what we're going to do is we're going to run ads in that large geographic region, and we're going to get leads from a bunch of different places. And they're going to be places that we don't know anything about, but it's okay, because when we use the online tools and we just follow a simple process, then we can get these deals sold, and we can get them sold just like any other deal out there, right? And again, the strategy, it could be wholesaling, it could be lease options, it could be creative financing, as Matt teaches. Those are the primary strategies. And the more of these that you have in your tool belt, the better, right? Because if you just have one hammer, if you can only do wholesaling, then you have the wholesaling sledgehammer. But if you've got other tools, then that means that you can do more with the leads you have, and that means it can be more profitable and you can get deals done faster. And then I'm going to go through this really quickly. Matt, am I okay on time just for a few minutes? I'm just going to spend 5 minutes on here. Yeah. So Matt said, hey, is there, if anybody here would like, and this is not I'm not going to sit here for 30 minutes and do some long drawn out pitch. This is, if you're here and you say, hey, Chico, this sounds interesting. I think I like the idea of doing ads. I like what you said. Learning how to do online marketing, I think, is something that would really serve me, right? As a business owner, I'm going to use it for real estate. At the same time, I want to be able to do deals, this whole concept of doing deals in a wider area and doing deals online and taking that virtual game to the next level. If that sounds interesting to you, then I was going to share with you how I can help you with that. And what I have is I teach people how to do this inside my Flip Anywhere Academy. And the Flip Anywhere Academy, it's an all-inclusive program, right? Everything in there that you need in order to implement this model is in there. Everything is step by step. I teach you how to, from the very beginning, I teach you how to set up the ads, including I give you all the targeting, all the campaigns. Everything is step-by-step video tutorials. I teach you the framework of everything that I discussed here, but in a much deeper format in terms of how to do the deals virtually and how to do them in small markets you never heard about. And it's designed for either someone that is experienced. So if you're already doing deals and you can add this on top of what you're already doing and expand upon it. If you're brand new and you've never done anything online, if you're completely a tech, you don't need to be a tech genius or anything like that. Then also at the same time, it could work for you. And what we have is a special offer here. If you're interested, you can go to epichwholesaling.com. And the program itself, you can get started with just one payment of $597, and then 30 days later, you'll make another payment of $597, at which point you'll be completely paid off. And however, if you did want to pay it all at once, we have that option where you can make one payment of $997 and take care of it all at once. And then also what I did do, and I wanted to just quickly go over it, for those that are interested, I also have, I included a couple of different bonuses to kind of to help you guys and to, give you the best chance of success possible. So number one is I talked about that you want the page, your Facebook page, you want it to seem personal. You want to add as much as you can credibility elements so that way when somebody visits your page, then it looks good and creates that trust factor. You would normally have to do that yourself and create the images or hire somebody. So what I did is I packaged all those images together. So then that way I'm going to go ahead and give them to you. So that way you don't have to create them. So all you got to do is when you're in the membership area, you'll get that video that shows you how to create your page. Literally it takes you 5 minutes. You get all the image files you take and you upload them, and that's it. You're done. So you don't have to worry about that. And then also, in addition to that, I'm also going to give you all the ads. So all the ads that we used, all the ad copy that we used, that we've tested, and we spent so much money in testing and to figure out what the right combination of words are and the headlines and everything else, I'm also going to include that as well. So that's included. Also, I'm including all the images. So rather than you having to test through all the different images and figure out which image works, which image doesn't work, and spending through that money, I'm also going to give you that as well. So now you don't have to deal with trying to figure that out. In addition to that, when you go to that page, epichwholesaling.com, you'll see that I didn't get a chance to cover this on the presentation, but we also have a way to build a cash buyer list using Facebook ads, and we can get cash buyers for $2 to $3 a cash buyer, which is really, really cheap. I didn't have an opportunity to go through this in the presentation because we would be here for a couple hours. However, though, I package all the ads, the images, and everything together to show you step by step how to set up these campaigns. You'll set up the seller campaigns first because you want the seller leads coming. Once you get that up, you can quickly get the buyer campaigns up. So that way now you have another way of finding buyers, so that when you do have a deal and you find a deal, then you don't have to worry about it not being able to sell it. In addition to that, we also included with this package, I know that for some of you starting out, you might be wondering, well, I just want to, one of the things that concerns you is, are you going to be able to have a meaningful conversation with the seller? And are you going to be able to handle their objections? Are you going to be able to say the right things so they feel comfortable with you? So I have a program. I no longer sell it. I used to sell it. Now I offer to my private clients, but I'm going to include it with what we have here is my objection handling course that covers every single objection that you might encounter whenever you are speaking with a seller, speaking with a title company, speaking with the buyers, etc. We're including that in the package here. And then also a couple of things that I didn't tell Matt about is that, so we have a couple of private Facebook groups where you can come in, you'll be able to interact with other people just that are implementing the system, successful students, and be able to get your questions answered. I go in there as well into the group. I answer questions. People do deals in that group, and I'm going to give you access to this group here as a bonus. That is, so when you sign up for the materials and you sign up for the membership, this is where you're going to be posting your questions about Facebook. Whenever you have a question about a campaign, or you're stuck on something, you can always ask here and you'll get the questions answered. However, though, I'm also going to give you, there's another group that we have that is for everything else. So if you have a question about a deal, you have a question about a seller situation, you need help with whatever else you need, you can ask it in this group, and myself and other students will also chime in and be able to help you. And then also the last thing I was going to mention is that I'm including 90 days worth of coaching. So for the next 90 days, I have calls twice. We have actually, I forgot to put it here. We have calls once a week. Two of those calls, two calls a month are with me, and then 2 calls a month are with Lauren on my team. Lauren's calls are for if you get stuck while you're implementing the system. What I'd recommend is, as you're working through the system, you can post in a group and be able to get your questions answered, and then you can also attend those calls with Lauren. And then in between those calls with Lauren, I do a call where it's just, you can come on and you can ask me questions. You can ask me questions about anything. So our calls are a great way to fill in the gaps for you. You're gonna go through the materials. The materials are very much step by step. So you should be able to follow everything step by step. But if you get stuck, with support, with the groups, and with the calls, you have everything you need in order to be able to get the system up and running and implemented. And then the last but not least is that we do offer a 30-day money back guarantee, no questions asked. Hey, if you decide, hey, it's not for you for any reason whatsoever, you just let us know. You send us an email to support@chrischico.com, and we'll give you money back. No questions asked. No funny business. I have a tremendous reputation in the industry. customer service wise, if you ask anybody out there, like, hey, how's Chris Chico's customer service? He'll tell you that it's top notch. We really go out of our way to serve our students and clients and give them everything they can to be successful. But if for any reason it isn't for you, then it's not a big deal. We'll give you your money back, no questions asked. And as a matter of fact, we also, not only that, but we'll give you $100 back for your trouble. So if you go in and you put the system in place and you spend some money in ads, and for whatever reason you're like, Chico, man, I woke up this morning and I hate Mark Zuckerberg, I don't want to see that guy anymore, then guess what? You don't even have to tell us that. You say, I want my money back. We'll give you money. We'll give you a refund, and we'll give you $100 to cover your ad costs. That's how comfortable I feel that, hey, we're going to get you all the results to be able to get this implemented. And also, so that's my way of saying I'm removing the risk. So everything here, what we're including is, normally the Flip Anywhere Academy by itself is $14.97, but we're including, I put these numbers in. I just want to go over this because sometimes these numbers, people put numbers like this. If you were to hire somebody to do the graphics for you, right? If you hire somebody on Fiverr or on Upwork to do graphics for your page, they're going to charge you money, right? So this is, you pay $500 to get those images done. I'm going to give you the ads and I'm going to give you the images. If you were to do this on your own, you would spend money on ads testing to figure out which images and which ads work. So you would spend that much money in order to go through and figure out what works. The same thing with the buyer ads. This is what you would spend in ad money to try to figure out the right combination of images and words, etc. The objection handling course, we used to sell that for $297. And then the groups. So we're making the groups paid groups, meaning that this is going to be after the holiday, where to gain access to the groups, you get it free initially, but then after the first month, you'd have to pay $97. And then you just pay $97 until you decide, no, I'm good, I don't need this anymore. But what I'm doing is, for you guys, is you're going to be grandfathered in. So I'm going to give you access to the groups, but you're not going to have to pay anything either now or in the future. So after the holidays, once we start charging new people coming in, you're already grandfathered in, so you're not going to have to pay for that. So that's why I put, if you pay $97 a month for 12 months, you'd spend about $1,200 and change for access to the groups. And then the monthly group coaching, that's going to be like a $297 a month thing, but we're not going to charge you for the 90 days worth of coaching. So all that we're including. And again, just one payment of $597. You would spend, if you wanted to do this, you would easily spend, and if you're trying to just figure it out on your own, you would easily spend $597 just on ads, just to and throw money away and give Zuckerberg an extra $597. So you pay the $597 today. In 30 days, you pay the next $597, and then you're paid in full. We don't hold anything back, meaning that even though you're making a payment today, we're giving you everything. I mean, you get everything included. There's nothing held back. And then if you wanted to take the option of just paying it all in full, you could save $200, and now you can use that for ads. So whatever way you want, you can go to epichwholesaling.com, and everything is laid out there as I have it there. And I just, Matt said, hey, if you could offer something for those that were interested. So I put this thing together here just for those of you that are interested in launching a national model and also learning Facebook ads and Instagram ads and how to do online marketing too as well.
Awesome, Chris. I got one question here. Thank you very much. It's very generous and very informative. You're on the cutting edge of all this stuff. And yeah, thanks for taking care of my people. I didn't know you're going to be that generous, and that's awesome. Mark is asking, is this, when you said 50 leads per day, it was a while back in the presentation, was that 50 leads per day or 50 leads per campaign?
Well, it was 50 when I said, okay. So what I said is that you need to go into this with the intent of you're going to generate at least 50 leads. Mm-hmm. If you are doing it nationally, then typically if you're spending $10 a lead, then you're going to be spending about $500 in total to get 50 leads. And so you're not going to get 50 leads in a day. Typically, if you're advertising at $20 to $25 a day, you're getting 2 to 3 leads a day, right? So if you continue on that route, and here's the other benefit. I forgot to mention this. The benefit with Facebook is that, like, say, if you wanted to do a direct mail campaign, you got to do a certain amount of mail up front in order to give it a viable test, right? You're not going to send 50 postcards and then decide that, oh, direct mail doesn't work or will work. You have to give it enough gas. The nice thing about Facebook is that you're spending $25 a day, and you're looking to get leads today. And the only way that you would spend another $25 tomorrow is that, hey, I got leads today, so tomorrow I'm going to spend $25. So the only way you would get to spending $500 or any significant amount of money is that you spend $20, you spend $30, you spend $40, you spend $50 incrementally, and you got leads, and that's the only reason you would continue to advertise. And so again, just to recap, you got to go into this saying, I'm going to generate 50 leads, and that one of those leads is going to turn into a deal. And again, if you're implementing Matt's strategies on creative financing, that's going to give you more avenues for you to do a deal, right? As opposed to just conventional wholesaling. If you're experienced, then if you're a ninja talking with sellers, then you might do more. But I always kind of give the worst case scenario so that you know what to expect, and you're not going to bail on this, when you didn't really give it a chance.
So what did you notice? What did you learn? Share with me in the comments below. And who do you know who's also struggling with running ads from Facebook trying to find motivated sellers? When their name comes to mind, please share it with them. I'll see you next time. Oh, I pulled this video right here for you to watch next. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Take care.